And I had nothing. And I was crashing with people, and then I bought a car for $100 and I slept in my car even at some point, and was schlepping my drums around and in no cases.
Oh
and
my gosh.
At that time there were a lot of clubs. A lot
of places to perform and listen. Yes.
Yeah, and so I would just find out where they were and just kind of go show up and meet people and listen to the music. Maybe occasionally someone would say, well, why don't you sit in? And I'd sit in, and then I'd meet someone else and go and sit in, and then I'd meet someone else and they'd say, hey, we've got a gig. But they weren't big money gigs. So I was playing gigs for very little money, but I was meeting people. And probably 3 or 4 months after being here, and I struggled quite a bit. I somehow was playing at this club in Venice, and it doesn't exist anymore. It was called the Comeback Inn, and I was playing with the Fowler brothers, who are an exceptionally talented musical family.
Absolutely.
And as it turned out, Tom, bass player, we were playing at this club, and he just turned to me and said, hey, I was talking to Dookie today, and he was speaking of the late, great George Duke. Yeah. And he said, he told me Zapp's looking for a rhythm section. Zapp meant Frank Zappa.
Absolutely.
And I went, really? And I said, how can I find out about this? I'll give you the management's number. Okay. So I started calling them up. And it was like the typical go away kid. Who are you? Go away. I kept calling them. But somehow on one of the phone calls, they must have asked me for a phone number. So I gave them a phone number where I was staying. And at that time, and I'm dating myself now, there were no answering machines. Right. This is pre-answering machines. Wired landline. If you're home, great. If you're not,
you miss
oh well.
That's it, yeah.
So I happened to be home one day, or at this place that I was crashing at, listening to the Zappa record. And I had my drums set up, and I was playing, and I heard the phone ring. And I went and picked it up. I went, hello? Yes, Mr. Zappa will hear you Tuesday night at Culver City Studios. Show up at 7 o'clock, whatever. Click. I went, wow. I had to get a ride down there, I think. I showed up. It was a cattle call. 3 lines, at least 150 deep, on different instruments. And there I was in this huge sound stage that was like an airplane hangar. Yeah. And I stood in line, and I saw people go up there one after the other, and it was kind of brutal. One guy went up and started playing the guitar, and in 15 seconds he got on the mic and said, next. Oh, man. And it was like, next, next, next. And so I'm getting closer to the front of the line, and now I'm starting to sweat, and it was literally like, And then I just went, okay, sink or swim. Here we go.
You dove in.
Terry Bozzio's double bass, think they were black, Gretsch kit was there.
Probably black, yeah.
I had never played double bass drums. So I just sat down behind his drums, and I thought, and I started playing, and then it was like a laundry list of categorical things. Like, okay, let's test your memory phrase retention. Spit this back at me. Okay, now I want you to play in 21. Okay, now solo in 19. Okay, now we're going to test your sight reading, And then he put the black page down, and I looked away and started playing it from memory as he was putting it on the page. And he thought, oh, you think you're a smart aleck. He takes it off, puts something called Pedro's Dowry down, which was this long orchestral piece, and said, 3, 4, and I had to play it in unison with Ed Mann. So I'm trying to read this thing, and I'm reading it, and maybe in 10 seconds, 15 seconds goes by, and he picks it up and goes, yes, you can read. Okay, next. And so at this point, I'm thinking, I actually thought, I must have been up here about a minute already. Wow. And then he just stopped and said, come over here. Pulled me to the side of the stage, and in his almost exact words, he looked at me very deadpan and said, I'd be amazed right now if anybody could come up here and cut you. But out of respect, I have to listen to a few more people. Can you please go and wait over there? And I went, okay. And I stood in this little holding area, and Ike Willis was over there and said to me, did he ask you to wait too? Oh. And I said, yeah. And then about 5 minutes later, well, maybe 15 minutes later, the manager comes over to us and says, "Oh, well, Mr. Zappa would like to hire you. When can you start?"
Oh my gosh.
And I said, "Now." And I ended up going to Spago that night with him, and he picked me up with his driver in a Rolls Royce.
Oh my Lord.
And took me to Spago, then took me to his house and introduced me to his wife and said, "I'd like you to meet the new drummer." And it was this whirlwind from that point on, a whirlwind. The whole thing was like, Comedy Central meets Juilliard meets boot camp for almost 3 years.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was just like a tornado.
Oh my God, when I went down actually to play during the rehearsal, I thought, this is crazy. I'm 20 years old and auditioning for Frank Zappa. This is ridiculous. But I went down, he told me to learn all these songs, and of course he pulled all these songs that I didn't know, And he was so, you should ask Vinnie, because Vinnie was there, how brutal he was on me. I couldn't even believe it. He made it so difficult. There's one thing, and I know this isn't necessarily a Frank interview, but I'll tell you the story, it's great. This is during my audition. He says, and Frank would like play these things on the guitar, and he had a certain technique, but he wasn't like a shredder or anything like that, And he'd play something, he'd say, "Play that." And I go, "Okay," and I play it, and he goes, "Okay, now, play it in 7/8. I say, "Okay," and I play it in 7. He goes, "Okay, now play it reggae 7/8. I'm like, "Okay," and I do it, and he goes, "Okay, now add this note." "Okay," and I do it. Playing reggae 7/8, and I'm adding these notes. And he goes, "Okay, add this note." And it was impossible. It just was physically impossible, not just for me, but for anybody. I said, "Oh, I can't do that." And he goes, "I hear Linda Ronstadt is looking for a guitar player."
That's classic.
Give me an impossible thing, And at the end of the rehearsal, I went, and he was just other things too, But at the end of the rehearsal, I went up to him. I said, "Thanks for inviting me. I'm really sorry. I'm going to go home now." He goes, "You're in the band." And I hugged him. Do know that he's the greatest sight reader in the world, right? But I'm gonna tell you a little story. This is a true story, okay? And it involves sight reading, being present, and Vinnie. Okay, so I just moved out to California. I'm 20 years old, and I find myself in rehearsal with Frank and Vinnie. And I've studied these guys. I've studied Vinnie before I was even in Frank's band. And Vinnie was reputed to be this really great sight reader, but Frank's music is it's a whole different world, Frank comes in with this piece of music called Mo and Herb's Vacation, and the drum part's completely written out, every step of the hi-hat, every hit, if it's on the bell, if it's on whatever tom it is, the kicks, everything is completely scored with articulations and, accents and everything, right? And Vinnie has it on and he's sight reading it. And he has it on it was like two music stands, right? And this is when his seat was, do you remember when he used to sit really low? And, and he had this beautiful habit of going like this. With his glasses, right? Okay. All right. So Vinnie's sitting there, and the tempo of this song is like this. Don't, kind of slow, but the drum part and the melody, it was absolute insanity. The polyrhythmic nested tuplet stuff going on was like the 17/3 with stuff inside of it. And so the drum part might sound, if the tempo is going like this, the drum part might sound like right? He's sight reading it, right? Okay, that's bad enough. Okay, but this one thing, I'm watching him do this, and he did this one thing, and that was it. I threw up my hands. I said, because I always wanted to be a great sight reader, and I worked really hard. But when I saw this, I stopped. Okay, so there's Vinnie, and he's got the music stand here, and over here he has a table, and there's a little plate, and there's sushi on it. Okay. There's pieces of sushi on the plate. Now, when you're reading music like this, with these huge landscapes of polyrhythms,
you have to look at something, and this is being present. When Vinnie would look at the music, he wasn't reading it, he was identifying it. It's like a mental snapshot that got it. Page turn, because you got to read it and then turn the page and start playing while you've already read the previous page so that you can turn the page and start reading the second page. So this beat is coming along and I see Vinnie and he goes like this, tap, tap, tap. It's one bar, 17/3. He gets a mental picture of it. He starts to turn the page, and as he's turning the page, the other limbs start reading what was on the previous page, and right before he ended up finishing reading what was on the second page, he went like this.